Hey, this is Jack back at the Devil's Den. I'm here with Mr. Welker, our freshman history teacher and I think junior psychology teacher.
Yeah, junior.
Here to talk about, if you see the background, you guessed it, Jason Voorhees and his psychological issues and how it's developed, things like that. So first off, if you guys have never heard of Jason Voorhees, you've probably at least seen, the guy with the hockey mask and the machete that kills teenagers at camps and stuff. So that's Jason Voorhees. Let's go a little bit into his origin. So Jason Voorhees, he's a hydrocephalic, which means it's like a
water. It's excess fluid on the brain causing pressure on the brain.
Yeah, which also gives you a massive head.
Yeah.
You start looking like Megamind. And he was born, I think, 1958. He's the firstborn of Elias and Pamela Voorhees. His sister, I forgot her name, but she's born a little bit after he dies in 1965, I believe. And he died because in Camp Crystal Lake, where his mother was a cook there, he was being bullied because, he had a really big head, and this is the 60s. Everybody was kind of a jerk. So, he's being bullied, he's being chased, and he tried to get away by jumping in the lake. Unfortunately, he couldn't swim, which doesn't make sense why he would jump in a lake if he couldn't swim. And the counselors were not paying attention because they were basically smoking weed and fornicating, I think is the best word I can say.
Yes, so that works.
Burning rubber. There you go, burning rubber. So his mother, he drowned, he died, and his mother, she went insane. She was all he had left. He was all she had left, and she was not emotionally or mentally stable to begin with, considering that she also killed Jason's father, Elias Voorhees, because he was beating him. Okay, to clarify, Elias was beating Jason because he was an alcoholic, abusive father/husband. So she killed him with a machete, and then threw him in Crystal Lake. So then, this is before the Friday the 13th movie. Now, in the Friday the 13th movie, the movie was released in 1980, but the events were in 1979, where they tried to reopen Camp Crystal Lake, and so she killed all the new counselors. But there was one survivor, this girl, I think her name was Alice, I believe. I haven't watched the first movie in a long time. But Alice kills her with a machete. There's a pattern in this franchise, by decapitating her. And unfortunately for Jason, this is his birthday, Friday the 13th, February 13th, 1979. It's his birthday, and he came back from the dead out of the lake and actually saw his mother get decapitated. So, a few years later, 1 or 2, I don't know the exact amount of years. No, actually, it was 2 months after that, he came back. Now he's like an adult now, and he's huge, massive, with a pillowcase over his head. Because he's super ugly, so he wants to hide that. So he has a pillowcase mask. He goes after Alice and her friends and family or whatever, and he takes revenge by killing them. Then he returns to Camp Crystal Lake to kill any intruders to protect Crystal Lake. Because, his mother, things like that. So now we have his, basic origin for the first 2 movies. I don't want to go any further from that. I want to ask you, Mr. Welker, what do you think, initial thoughts on his psychology and how he could have gotten to such an extreme where he has, I think the official kill count is 158 people.
Well, I guess when you come back from the dead that many times, you're going to have more opportunities. If you're dead, generally it stops. But if you have the ability to come back from the dead, I guess the body count can come up if the mental stability is not there. I think that you have to start with the understanding of the hydrocephaly and what potentially could happen there. With hydrocephaly, that's pressure on the brain, and that pressure can cause mental impairment. Now, depending on the the where the pressure's at, it could in fact cause him to act out in certain ways, depending on where the pressure is. So, but there's a whole host of things that could go on here. I mean, if he didn't exhibit any pathology prior to his first death, right?
His first death
He
when he
didn't kill
drowned.
anybody?
No, he was just
Okay.
an innocent kid running away from bullies.
So when he comes
He's a
back,
victim.
he's experiencing some trauma there. There's some PTSD potentially.
And then his mother got decapitated as soon as he came back.
Yeah, that would be a PTSD thing. If you're already talking to somebody who's already mentally has some kind of a brain impairment through the hydrocephaly, then yeah, it's very real possibility that there's some kind of a biological explanation for what he's doing there. It could be a situation where his hydrocephaly is impairing his ability to develop empathy, or it's causing problems with him.
So wait, are you
Causing extreme, like his limbic system can cause extreme aggression or loss of control or poor judgment if the pressure was on the limbic system. So it's very possible.
poor judgment? For example, being him getting an axe to the head, so he keeps running towards the person who put it there. That's a reference to the end
yeah.
of Part 3 of Friday the 13th.
Yeah, well, imagine if the
Now-
axe to the head would relieve some of the pressure, but you never know.
Yeah, it could be all the blows to the head that maybe why his head
Could be
goes back
damage.
to a normal size
Yeah.
by the 13th movie. Well, now that we talked a little bit on his physical, like biological thing. What about his environment, the environment he grew up in and continued to grow in?
Yeah, I think but you got a combination of environmental issues and you have some biological issues, and when you have those things come to when they come together, you get this type of antisocial behavior. It's called antisocial now. I think years ago it would have been referred to as psychopathic or a psychosis, but it's referred to now as antisocial disorders. You got a kid with brain damage, potentially. He's been traumatized. He's obviously suffering from PTSD. Potentially, the hydrocephaly is causing some kind of maybe an issue in the limbic system or something of that nature. It's making him act out in this way. If you lose the ability for empathy because of damage to the brain, then yeah, killing somebody is no different than opening a can of soda for somebody. There's no remorse. There's no ability for them to feel remorse.
So I also want to ask that he's brain damage, right? Mm-hmm. He's like mentally impaired. So if that's all true and stuff, which obviously it is, you can see that by looking at the movies.
We're speculating, right?
Yeah, speculating, but by seeing, we can see that he obviously doesn't feel empathy because he has the mind of a child, right? Mm-hmm. Of back when he in his mind, he's still that little kid that got drowned in the lake.
Sure.
That age. How is he able to learn other things and do things like, for example, shoot a bow and arrow with expertise, use harpoons, turn off electrical systems, cut phone lines, screw up your car so you can't get away. He can essentially hunt you. He can find you from, hundreds of miles away. He can track you, find you, and kill you as,
Well, I think some of we generally
even set traps as well.
I think we take just from a purely, if you look at this, you take the supernatural piece out of it, right? Mm-hmm. We generally understand that these skills are learned skills. He would have had to have witnessed these skills somewhere. He would have had to have been at least familiar with it
Yeah,
enough.
but my question is because he grew up like after his mother died, prior to his first death and his mother's death, he would have had no experience. And then after that, he lived alone in the basically endless woods around Camp Crystal Lake, right by there, all alone with no internet. He didn't know how to use internet, TV, an oven,
Well, the survival skills that would go along with through the necessity of being in that environment by yourself would be, you would learn you would learn how to survive on your own. So when you talk about things like hunting, it could be instinctual. It could have been something that, I've got to eat, I have to drink water, I have to survive. So therefore, it could have been an instinct. It could have been what we call this hind brain or this reptilian part of our brain that tells us things that we have to do to survive. So maybe it was learned behavior out of necessity in that situation. The more technical stuff, I don't really have an answer for outside of, there's a lot of stuff that goes on with people with different type of brain maladies that have. They know things, and we don't know how they've learned them. We see this with small children who are what we call these savants, who 3 years old are playing Mozart, flawless Mozart, and we're like, how can you've never been exposed to this? How do you know these things? So, the brain's kind of a funny thing that we think we're obviously learning more about, but. Is it unusual that he would be able to know how to, hotwire a car or that kind of thing? Yeah, probably.
Like, he doesn't know how to drive. He doesn't even know how to speak, but he knows what to do to your car, to your house, so that, do whatever you can, no matter how technical it is, so that you can't get away from him.
I would say that some of it's explainable, some of it's probably, you would chalk it up to being just kind of the mystery of the brain. You don't know. And some of it I don't know the backstory where he was at when he was dead.
In a lake.
Yeah,
the first time, usually he's in a lake where he's buried, or he exploded, and speaking of all the many, many occasions that he has died and come back, I want to ask you about, so he's died and, come back multiple times.
Right.
So what effect on his psychosis and trauma do you think that would have on him of going to hell, coming back on multiple times and being killed?
I guess it would depend on what that experience was after he died, wouldn't it? I think the one thing you could take into consideration is after he dies, then he's no longer afraid of dying because he knows what's coming. It's the first time, that's the scary one. After that, at least you have an idea what's going to happen. Maybe I'm just speculating on that. I don't know what happens, in the afterworld, and what that would do to you. I know that you wouldn't be as anxious. For example, it'd be like going your first day of school. The first day of school is hard. Second, third, fourth, fifth day of school.
But this is hell. Every day.
And again,
speaking of hell, if we take a look at if we take into consideration the Freddy versus Jason movie, we actually do get a little insight on what Jason's hell actually looks like, which is very surprising to me, because this brings up a question of his hell is actually killing teenagers at Camp Crystal Lake. When he's in hell, that's what he's doing. So it brings up the question, if that's his hell, why is that his hell when that's when he does when he's alive, and he continues to do that? So could that lead up to the possibility that maybe he doesn't want to, but maybe there's some supernatural factor or mental factor or damage that forces him to do that? Say, like the theory that some people have that Jason's father, Elias, actually accidentally released a demon and possessed Jason before Jason was even born. So maybe, do you think it could be, the fact that he can, come back from the dead on his own? but he decided to stay in hell as well. If you look at
Well, if you're doing the same thing in both places, what's the difference?
yeah, but my question is like, why is that his personal hell? If that's his personal hell, wouldn't that mean that he actually hates killing all those kids?
Well, but that implies that he understands he has some kind of a conscious, or or he has the emotional ability to understand the right and wrong of it. So if we go back to the original premise that there's some type of damage, brain damage, or that there's something going on in the limbic system or the amygdala is damaged and he's not cognitively aware or able to process it and develop empathy, then it doesn't make sense. To him, killing in hell or killing outside of hell is killing. It doesn't resonate with him emotionally because he's incapable of having emotions because of the brain damage.
That's not entirely true, because I'm going to get to an explanation of why you might feel empathy and stuff, start feeling. But right now, like, he does feel emotion for his mother. You know, if there are women that have pretended said his name the same way his mother would, and, you know, he starts to hallucinate that it's his mother talking to him. And he loves his mother. Mm-hmm. It's the only thing in life that he truly loves. Or rather loved, since she's dead.
Yeah.
So he is capable of feeling that kind of emotion. So there's that. And there's also the theory that I might have is that he obviously has some sort of healing factor, similar to that of Deadpool. In fact, he's like a Deadpool that doesn't talk, you know. He's like serious Deadpool.
Yeah.
You know, because ugly, super healing factor, can't die, right? So maybe, my thought is maybe that over time, also if you take notice that his head actually seems to get more and more normal shaped, although his face goes to hell, pun intended. You know, maybe that his healing factor activated, you know, from whatever was able to give him that's some sort of healing factor and ability to come back from the dead, resurrect himself. Maybe could it be possible that he's healing, but all the damage that he gets from in the strain, emotional and physical strain and damage that he gets from all the killing and stuff, makes it slower.
I mean, even if, let's say, this guy he could heal his brain, and he heals the hydrocephaly, he repairs the links between the synaptic interfaces. He's still dealing with the PTSD portion of this thing. Mm-hmm. You know, you're still stressed. There's still trauma, and how you react to that trauma. I would tell you this: that normal people don't.
Yeah, they don't kill 158
they don't
people.
Do that, and there's something wrong. There's something There is something either physically, and I would argue in this case probably more physical than it is. There's a physical element to this psychosis. There's something that's causing him to not have the ability to discern or have this empathy or to be able to understand or have negative emotional responses somehow. So there's more to this than him just, you know, if he could heal himself, he would go be a lawyer, or he'd go be a doctor, or he could go work.
Healing himself doesn't mean that he knows things. He'd still be.
Yeah.
So another question.
He's not healed, I guess, would be my point.
Well, yeah, and that if he does have some sort of healing factor, it's probably so focused on, you know, keeping him alive, because
maybe
after he's resurrected through electricity and stuff, he's basically decomposed. You know, so that would have set him back a lot too, and so focused on healing his body and keeping him alive that it may have taken, you know, like 60 years.
Yeah.
But even if he has healing, he can feel emotions and stuff. Could it be that he's been doing this for so long that he doesn't know how to do anything else, or maybe he just can't stop, like it's muscle memory, some sort, a mixture of muscle memory and just he doesn't know anything else.
I would still say that's a physical, but it's some kind of an impairment on there's something physical going on there. You don't, we are designed to feel empathy. That's kind of what the amygdala does. That's kind of what the limbic system does help us do. And if it's not working, then this is what you get. Mm-hmm. So in order for him, in a normal biological situation, to be able to continue to do what he's doing, he can't do it with a normal set of, with his brain, perfectly functioning in the way it's supposed to be. It's just not designed to work that way, at least the way we understand it. Generally speaking, and you look at other serial killers and you look at other people who do this kind of thing, there is generally something, either traumatic has happened that has impaired their ability to be able to parse this stuff and develop empathy, or there is a physical trauma of some sort that is also mimicking the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's, the trauma of seeing your mother get her head cut off could potentially cause him to shut down and cut pathways and millions of, there's a bunch of stuff that could go on. You could get multiple personality disorder. There's a lot of things that could go that when you see trauma, your brain tries to make sense of the world for you. Mm-hmm. And when it doesn't or it can't, it will do strange things sometimes. For example, you can witness trauma. Some people with multiple personality disorders will end up, a lot of that's triggered by trauma. I see this horrible thing happen, or this horrible thing has happened to me, and in order for me to deal with this, I'm going to create another personality. And that personality is going to be tough and mean, and it'll be able to stand up to, or it'll be able to protect me from that trauma. So maybe it could be a situation where he has multiple personality disorder. You could have a situation where he's seen this trauma and he's developed a persona that will protect him, but then he has another side of him that has this empathy and love for his mother. Could be another personality that he's developed in order to protect himself.
So, I want to say, okay, so we're going to wrap this up. Maybe we can continue it another time. But for now, we're going to stop right there. And also, over the weekend, I'm going to get a new microphone that's going to have a much better quality and be much better for podcasts. So there'll be that. And I also want to say that the next episode, I'm not entirely sure what it's going to be, but it's going to be soon. And by the time this is uploaded, I'll have a Devil's Den Facebook and maybe a Twitter set up. And I might put it in the links to it in the description. And if I don't, just look up Devil's Den in the on Facebook if you want. And, follow. Don't forget to like, subscribe, especially if you go to MRH, because then I know you. Like, subscribe, and comment on things you want to see on this channel. Whether it's Let's Plays, other things you want me to talk about. Let's Plays might be a little difficult because I don't have an actual computer. I have a Chromebook. So, you got a plastic paperweight and a PS3 that doesn't record the screen. But, leave some comments in the comment section about what you want to hear. Also, when I get my microphone, I'm going to start doing ASMR. So if you're an ASMR fan or know somebody who is an ASMR fan, direct them towards me and listen in and leave suggestions of things you want to see. See you next time.